Man hid aunt's body in her house for 8 months so he could claim almost £7,000 in benefits. A man hid his dead aunt's body for 8 months so that he could continue claiming benefits for her care. John Macleod left the mummified body of his aunt Mina Macleod in her bed in a flat in Leith, Edinburgh, before the decomposing corpse was discovered by a workman in 2016. Macleod had transferred the dying 75-year-old to her former home in the capital by driving her from his home in Kirkintilloch, near Glasgow. The 55-year-old then had to carry the frail pensioner up a flight of common stairs before staying with her while she passed away. He then covered the woman's body up with a blanket before locking her inside the first-floor flat and leaving her there for 8 months. Macleod admitted failing to inform the authorities of his aunt's demise and to claiming £6,956 in benefits when he appeared at Edinburgh Sheriff Court earlier this year and returned for sentencing yesterday. Sheriff Robert Weir QC told Macleod his motives were wholly misguided and that he found it difficult to understand the motivation for what you did. But the sheriff stopped short of jailing Macleod and instead handed him an 18-month supervision order and told him he must complete 300 hours of unpaid work in the community as punishment. Sheriff added, "I do accept that you are not a man who exhibits emotion easily and find it difficult to discuss the circumstances of your late aunt whose memory, by your actions, have dishonored and you will have on your conscience for a long time to come. I have taken into account the 27 years of care you provided to her and in all the circumstances I do not consider it would be in the public interest to imprison you today." But the sentence was slammed by Macleod's sister Shna Woodhams, who described her brother as despicable and that he has ripped our family apart. Following the sentencing, Mrs. Woodhams, a nurse from Kent, confronted Macleod outside the Capital Court telling him "You should rot in hell for what you have done." Outside the court, Mrs. Woodhams, 57, said, "I am very disappointed by the sentence as they painted him as a golden boy in court. He may have done a lot of good, for Mina, but clearly he has done a lot of harm. People just cannot get away with this sort of thing. I am a nurse and it totally goes against everything I believe in. I was hoping he would be jailed, but he will have 18 months of hell with keeping up with the supervision order, and I know one slip-up will mean he will be inside. People need to know what type of person he is, as he is definitely not a saint. I am estranged from my mum and it is all to do with the way he controls her and her life. He has been a control freak all his life. My family are all upset, as you can imagine, but if my dad, Mina's brother, was here he would be bloody mortified. He has decimated my dad's name. But at the end of the day we don't know what happened with Mina, as he has not been truthful to anyone. Unfortunately, I do not think justice has been served for Mina today at all." Previously, Fiscal Deputy Aidan Higgins told the court Macleod, who had previously served in the RAF, was the sole carer for his paternal aunt for around 27 years before she passed away in December 2015. Mr. Higgins said on the day Macleod drove his dying aunt to her former home in Edinburgh he noticed her breathing was shallow and she seemed unwell. Mr. Higgins said, he concluded she seemed to be dying and wanted her to die in her own bed. He did not believe she was in discomfort or pain. He carried in her dressing gown and pajamas and laid her in the back seat of his car. He then drove her to Edinburgh and carried her through the common stair and put her into her own bedroom. The fiscal added, he then pulled the sheets over her body and left the flat and locked the door. The badly decomposed body of Mina Macleod was then discovered by a workman around 8 months later in August 2016. Mr. Higgins added, he entered the room and was surprised to see a body lying in the bed. He knew the flat had been unoccupied for years. He saw gray hair and pulled back the bed sheets to find the badly decomposed and mummified body of Mina Macleod. The stunned workman then contacted police and during the investigation it became apparent Macleod had claimed £6,596 in benefits he was not entitled to. The court also heard Mina Macleod had contracted meningitis at age 6, and suffered from lifelong learning difficulties. She had frequent seizures, limited speech and needed help with basic household tasks. Solicitor Jonathan Campbell, defending said his client had cared for his Aunt Mina between 1988 and 2015. Mr. Campbell said family members had always seen Mina well cared for and well presented while she was being cared for by Macleod. He added, he took the view on the day of his aunt's death the best place for her was in her own bed and his company rather to die in hospital. But he knows he should have sought medical attention, but took matters into his own hands. Beautician, 36. Jailed after blinding woman in hammer attack. Man charged with manslaughter of 100-year-old woman who died after street robbery. Miley Billingham's dad pleads not guilty to her murder. After her death he shut her away from the outside world and he recognizes how wrong that was. He clearly dedicated a large part of his own life to care for his aunt. But Mr. Macleod recognizes he has failed his aunt and dishonored her memory. Macleod admitted to repeatedly failing to inform the authorities of the death of Mina Macleod, whereby they were unable to conduct an investigation into her death, and to concealing the woman's body at an address at Madeira Street, Edinburgh, between December 16, 2015 and August 10, 2016. He also pleaded guilty to pretending to his mother on numerous occasions that his aunt was alive and residing at her home address. Macleod also admitted to claiming £6,596 in income support, carer's allowance and disability living allowance that he was no longer entitled to claim between the same dates. More, campaign to save dog raped by human then dumped with intestines hanging out. More, Donald Trump gives female diplomat the air kiss from hell as he arrives in Canada.